Back to university, and no doubt there'll be plenty of concerns financially. That's for sure. I'm sure many of us have been there in the past, trying to budget. So we have Mr MoneyJar, who's professionally known as Mr MoneyJar, is going to join us on the show and give us some tips, or perhaps give some university learners some tips on what they can do. And no doubt they'll be sort of stressed, financially. We also got John Dentry, who's a spokesperson as well, and at Current Account Switch, who's going to give us some insights as well into what we can do, what potentially some university students can do. So welcome to the show. Great to have you on board.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Terry.
So if we start with yourself, Rotimi, professionally known as Mr. MoneyJar. What are some of the stresses that basically learners, no doubt they'll be trying to budget, think of ways that they can, that they can sort of, work their way and navigate there through uni. But what are some of the insights that you can maybe share with some of the learners that are listening in?
Well, as you've said, Jimmy, with it being September, many students will either be starting at uni or going back, and it's a huge change in a lot of young people's lives. Lots of things to juggle: accommodation, travel, course materials, managing your money for the first time, leaving home for the first time. And Current Account Switch Service research is saying that nearly half of students feel stressed about their finances, and a third feel overwhelmed, which is completely understandable. And we think that one very simple thing you can do on the financial side, at least, is to ensure that you have a bank account that's right for you. That's something which, if you get right, can make a lot of other things easier.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. So before we sort of bring John into the conversation, Rotimi, what sort of, giving me this insight, what some of the benefits of having a bank account? Ironically, I was speaking to someone about this yesterday, off piece a little bit, but in terms of getting the right sort of bank account, what are some of the things how can that sort of help to have an account and then being able to sort of use that as a way to navigate through a lot of the expenses you mentioned there?
Yeah. Well, the main way it can help is that for a lot of us, we, when we're younger, when we're kids, we might have a bank account opened for us by a parent or guardian, and then that's the bank account that sort of stays with us through our childhood and our adolescence. And uni provides an opportune time to just review that and see if there are any additional products, features, or benefits that you could have for that time in your life. This includes, but is not exclusive to, things like free rail cards, budgeting tools. A lot of banks will offer that in-app, and maybe even cash incentives. So it's worth doing a quick online search, doing some comparisons, seeing the products, features, and perks that'll be right for you as a student, and then facilitating that switch.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of, many students no doubt may have like a part-time job as well. They might have some part-time work as well. They may have like a loan. I suppose the issue with a lot of learners, if they are and do get a loan, is how they budget that. Just before bring John into the conversation, what are some maybe sort of tips if students do have a lump sum, Rotimi? What should they sort of take in consideration where maybe they might spend it before they get it type thing?
That's it. So it's all about making a plan in advance. So when you receive income, what you want to try and do is place that income somewhere in a bank account to work out what your fixed expenses are. So those are the things that you have to pay for, like your accommodation, like your bills, like your food. And then the money left over is what we call your disposable income. And this is the money that you want to make a plan in advance for how you're going to spend it and what you're going to spend it on. So I think back to when I was at university, I got better throughout uni, but certainly in my first year I didn't have that plan. So I got all of my money and then just proceeded to spend it all as quickly as possible, thus spending the rest of term in my overdraft. So a plan made in advance will help you to avoid that.
Yeah, that's a good tip for sure, and taking that sort of pause and reflect as well. And in terms of, I mentioned before, John, just sort of briefly, ironically, I was speaking to a student yesterday who'd mentioned accounts, and I was honest and said, look, I wouldn't know where to begin with in terms of accounts, to be fair. But what's your take on it, John? Sort of like in an account. What are some sort of tips that you can give regards an account?
Well, Jimmy, I think the first thing to call out is that students shouldn't feel alone when it comes to undertaking this step in researching around for bank accounts, a bank account that's going to best suit their needs, because there is an abundance of resource out there that in different guises that's going to really help them. To pick up on Rotimi's quote around taking the time and planning ahead is just as important, in terms of looking for that account. Before going out to uni, take some time to do that research, and it can be as simple as speaking to friends and family about, accounts that they have, friends or siblings who have previously gone to uni, and understand from them what they went through, what they did, using tried and trusted resources such as Mr MoneyJar and the content that he provides, and the banks and building societies that operate current accounts and also operate within the current account switch service, reading up on their account product web pages. And it's not that not all of them will scream necessarily student account, so a Google search of student accounts will bring a return, or a proportion of a return. We know from previous research of an 18 to 24 audience that the term current account is rarely known amongst this audience. It's more just a simple bank account term. So look across bank accounts through banks and building societies product pages, and look at the features that come with these products, and you will find one that speaks to you loudest than others, and it will be that one where you say, okay, that is the one I want. That's the one that's going to best suit me as I take this next important step in my life.
That's an interesting one. This is sort of going a little bit off track a little bit, John, and I mentioned sort of conversation. I did copy you, and I work as a university lecturer as well, and basically, I was speaking to a learner yesterday, and they were talking about they wanted like a separate account to where they could just have really small amount of money in there to make, like maybe a purchase online, or maybe we talked earlier, Rotimi, about things like books and just smaller purchases, but that would help them budget. They thought financially better. Is there a case for having an extra account? Do you think maybe having another account aside from maybe where a lump sum goes in type thing, where you can deposit a little bit in there and just use that to maybe make a few purchases? The rationale being that you don't get the temptation to sort of overspend type thing, and maybe you can kind of keep track of your purchases a little bit better.
So with some of the people I speak to, they do this. I've called this the 2 bank account strategy myself, and it's where you get paid into one bank account. That bank account is what receives your income and is used to pay for your fixed expenses, but then you can transfer a separate amount of money into a second bank account and use that as your spending account, and treat that spending money almost like a bill, like one of your fixed expenses. And separating the money out and earning in one account and spending from the other is a simple way that you can budget your money and limit yourself from going over budget, particularly if that second account shows your balance in app and gives you the notifications when you spend and so on. So that can work as well.
Yeah, no, definitely sort of keeping track of it. I thought it was a good idea, not just for students, but for myself as well, for anybody really. Sort of it gives you an idea where you're up to, financially, in terms of any disposable income coming in or anything else you've got to focus on purchases. And with that, John, so you mentioned there in terms of, say, you research, say you understand what you want the account for. You go out there, you research, what's out there type thing. One account might not work for somebody else. It's their call. But where can they sort of go in terms of, I know I kind of touched on it, but where can, say, maybe students listening in go in terms of sort of website to sort of look into things in a lot more detail, where they can sort of, type in, this is the type of account I need, this will at least give me an insight into what might be the best for me?
it primarily it will be the banks and building societies, and if you were looking, if you've made that first important step of assessing your current bank account, and it could be that that one that your parents opened for you all those years ago, just assessing it and saying, no, you know what, this isn't going to provide me the maximum value when I start university. I need to switch. I need to open up a new bank account, and actually I need to make the switch to take everything from it and move it across to the new bank. You start then, obviously you need looking into the advice around the current account switch service, and you can use that through our website at currentaccount.switch.co.uk. It gives the details of how switching works, but it lists the banks and building societies who participate within the service. Then you've got your starter as to, right now I know who I need to be looking into, and it's through their websites and maybe even comparison websites that call out, if you wish for these kind of features, whether that's app-based banking, or I'm looking for some incentives that are currently active in the market. There'll be call outs and signpostings where you can review the details and the features of those particular accounts in more detail, and it's all about knowledge collating to give you everything you need to make that firm decision. Yep, this is where I want my banking to rest whilst I'm at uni.
It seems a lot easier than it used to be back in the day, John, where you kind of had to figure it out for yourself type thing. It was more like from what you heard and other stuff type thing. And sometimes I admit I'd sort of kept an account, even though there might have been better ones out there. It was just out of convenience. You've had it for however long type thing. But like all things, whether it's a phone or a broadband, whatever, sometimes just out of convenience, even there's a better deal out there for you somewhere. In terms of, no doubt you've got a lot of information, Rotimi. Can anyone sort of listening in, is there sort of a website they can go, they can find a bit more information, they want to sort of take a bit of time to have a look at things, get a few tips, a few ideas for themselves?
Yes, I'm across social media. My handle is at Mr MoneyJar, and I can also be found at mrmoneyjar.com.
Brilliant. No, thanks for your time. So that was Rotimi Merriman-Johnson, otherwise known as the MoneyJar, Mr MoneyJar, and John Denter, who kindly came on board the show to give us some insights into potential money saving tips. So thanks again for your time, and have a great day and a great week. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Cheers, Jimmy. Thank you.